upon a time there was truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative is the truth of mass suffering, injustice and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan, live on a Sunday, December 15th, 2019. Let me close the door. They don't call us independent media for nothing. Hope everyone's having a lovely, lovely Sunday. Quite a lot going on in the news, and we will be discussing, quite a bit. Let me know if you could hear me. Let me know if you could see me wonderfully in a different location today, but I think everything's working for the most part. I covered yesterday, I'm excited to show you, there was a social justice market here in New York City with pretty much everything a true progressive could want. So I purchased some things, but I also did some interviews there, so I'm going to show you some of that. There was some Bernie supporters with art. There was people selling gentrification, anti-gentrification gear, and many other things. So excited to show you those interviews. And as always, we are live on Sundays to grow Status Coup. Unlike others, we do not have corporate fat cats funding us. You are Status Coup. So this is a super chat. If you're feeling super on this Sunday, let us know. Pop Reality, $10 in the super chat, already getting started. You're wrong about the jank endorsement. We're in a civil political war in the Dem Party. We stick at our heels against smears and fight back this so's division when the planet can't afford it. Okay. Thanks for the super chat. I gave you my thoughts the other day on the jank endorsement, so I don't really think it requires relitigating it, but respect your opinion. I just don't agree. So thanks for the super chat, though. We really appreciate it. So a couple housekeeping reminders before I get right into it. Please, please, please press the like button. The more people that press the like button, which is the thumbs up button right under the video, the more people that will see us. We're going to get into it a little bit later, but YouTube just openly admitted that they've been suppressing channels like this for 2 years now. So we really are up against it on YouTube. It is very, very difficult to get our videos recommended to non-subscribers. It is very, very difficult to get our videos in people's feeds. It is pretty much CNN and Fox News that are being stuffed down people's throats, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So you could help by pressing the like button. Also press the share button. That makes a big difference. Also, if you're not on our text system yet, text 474747 to Coup. Type in Coup, and you could get on our text system. Follow us at Status Coup on Periscope. We're live there right now. Follow us at Twitch. We are also live there, twitch.tv/Status Coup, which we are very much trying to grow, in part because of the shenanigans YouTube is doing. And also, join our email list. That's another important way for us to grow. All you got to do is go to statuscoup.com And I will give you an update as we start. Hopefully, we expand this number today. We're now at 742 paid status Coup members. This is how we grow for the long term. So I hope if you got $5 to $10 a month, you'll join us as a member. You also get bonus content and bonus videos. And we're going to be having our monthly members call soon, probably this coming week, actually, before the holidays. So definitely consider signing up, and we appreciate your support. So where to start? And this is a super chat. So I think that if you look at the polling right now, but just the energy on the ground, I think that right now, if the Iowa caucus were held today, it would be a toss-up between Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pee Wee Herman. I do not think Joe Biden is going to win the Iowa caucus. His campaign has basically signaled that they're expecting him to lose the Iowa caucus. There's no energy really on the ground in Iowa for Joe Biden because the media has propped up Pete Buttigieg to Obama 2007 levels. He is currently in a lot of these polls doing number one or number two. But I also think, as I've reported, as others have reported, there is a Bernie vote that is not being seen, that is not being polled, because Bernie is trying to get a lot of new voters, a lot of first-time voters, those kinds of things. So if Iowa were held today, I really think it would be a toss-up. I think if Bernie wins Iowa, it's going to be a nail-biter. I think if Pete won Iowa, it would be a nail-biter. But I do think right now Bernie is in great position to win the Iowa caucus. And I also think because that is a reality, the DNC and their allies in the corporate media are already, it's not even that they're already preparing for the onslaught that would come against Bernie if he won Iowa. We're talking ambulance sirens of all the corporate media masters coming in after Iowa. If Bernie wins Iowa, forget it. It's going to be a collective meltdown. But I think they're already showing, as far as the DNC, and when I say the DNC, it's all one. CNN, MSNBC, the consultants that the DNC pays money to and wastes their money to, they're already actually showing you how they plan on rigging this. And it's a little different than in 2016 because I don't think they're dumb enough this time. They might be. But I don't think they're dumb enough per se this time to put it in writing what they're doing. You know what I mean? I don't think they're dumb enough to basically put in writing articles they're trying to plant with the media, this and that. Instead, they themselves are just going on the media to try and destroy Bernie Sanders. So I'm going to explain how. And by the way, Jen's not in the super chat. She has a Christmas concert with her kid. So I think Colin's helping me out with the super chat. So if I missed any super chats, I'm going to try to keep up with the super chats as best as I could. So, and by the way, somebody just said, I think Bernie will win Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, then at least California and Texas on Super Tuesday. Just so you know, Marcus is going to be in Iowa for several weeks. Our reporter Marcus, after Christmas, he's going to Iowa for us. So he's going to be covering Iowa quite extensively. I plan on going to New Hampshire as early as this week. Just waiting to see the schedule, because as of now, I don't know where Biden is. I don't know where Pete is this week. So if they're in New Hampshire, I plan on going up there to get back in the field and cover these servants for the oligarchy. So I want to get into some of those rallies, and I would love to get some questions to Joe and Pete as soon as possible. So I want to show you this segment because I think it's very, very illuminating to what is going on in terms of the DNC and how they're trying to rig this thing. Let's take a look.
Primary hasn't been that chaotic, but there certainly have been a few meaningful shifts in the race. There was Kamala Harris's quick rise and long fall. Pete Buttigieg has surged recently in...
Hold on, I just want to make the volume better for you. There we go.
primary hasn't been that chaotic, but there certainly have been a few meaningful shifts in the race. There was Kamala Harris's quick rise and long fall. Pete Buttigieg has surged recently in Iowa and New Hampshire. Elizabeth Warren spent months climbing in the polls only to lose some momentum in the last few weeks. All the while, Bernie Sanders has been chugging along at between 15 and 20% in national polls. His support has barely budged, second only to Joe Biden. It's therefore easy to forget about Bernie, and he's gotten less coverage in the media than the other frontrunners, but he's still in a pretty decent position. He's within striking distance of winning both Iowa and New Hampshire. According to the 538 polling average, Buttigieg currently leads in Iowa by about 1 point, but it's basically a three-way tie between him, Biden, and Sanders. The same is true, more or less, in New Hampshire. Sanders is also polling relatively strongly in the third state to vote, Nevada, and his support has edged up in delegate-rich California, which votes on Super Tuesday. Here's why that matters. Sanders is close enough to Biden nationally that bounces from the early states, especially in Iowa, could make the rest of the race extremely competitive. Of course, being in striking distance in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada is not the same thing as actually winning those states. And if he does manage to win an early state or two and close the gap on Biden, you would expect the Democratic Party elites might make some moves to stop Sanders. So do I buy that Bernie has a shot at the nomination? Definitely, I do. Look, if you had to pick one candidate in this race, it would probably be Biden. His position is fairly robust. But Bernie has as strong a hand to play as anybody else.
So let's talk about that now on our roundtable. Before you come in the air, we were all sort of agreeing that he's shown remarkable staying.
So the first thing there is Nate Silver, who's consistently wrong about everything, just admitted. I mean, they called you conspiracy theorists in 2016, but they just admitted you could expect that if Bernie were to win Iowa, the Democratic Party is going to try to stop him. So this is, finally, they're admitting that there's a coordinated campaign, particularly among the media, but also the DNC, all this, to stop one candidate. So at least Nate is being honest in this regard. But I think the real interesting part comes a little bit later in this segment. So let's if you could stomach it, let's play a little bit more of it. Remember, press that like button if you can.
Power, Bernie Sanders this year, but I want to tie that to the election of Boris Johnson on Thursday. He seems to be uniting a lot of analysts. Mike Bloomberg says he's the canary in the coal mine for Democrats. Steve Bannon, James Carville says you can go so far to the left you can lose to an unacceptable incumbent. That's the lesson. The lesson is screaming right in your face. Steve Bannon picks up on that. If Democrats don't take the lesson, Trump is headed for a Reagan-like 84 victory. So, Ruth Marcus, if James Carville and Steve Bannon agree, does that mean it's right or it's wrong?
Well, that's an interesting question. Look, we all have a tendency to overinterpret the impact of midterm elections, of off-year elections, and certainly of elections in other countries, which have different politics and different political systems than ours. That said, that lesson of that election, which I'm going to now overinterpret, having warned against it, is not good news for Democrats, and it should be particularly chilling for people who are thinking about the possibility of a Sanders nomination, because that I'm not sure we're going to get to Reagan landslide territory, but I think it would be a really big challenge for Democrats.
And Patrick, yes, one of the things we've seen from Democratic voters this year is even though like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren take a big chunk of the vote, 30, 40% of the vote, sometimes more, whenever one of them rises too high, they do seem to hit a wall with Democratic voters who are most concerned about who can beat Trump.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that boom and bust cycle, but I have to just very quickly say, George, that I don't think there are many lessons from England unless you think of Corbyn as a serious leader. This was a failed leader who coddled the anti-Semites in his ranks and never took a clear, coherent position on Brexit. That's why he failed there. But there is this boom-bust inside the Democratic Party over the course of the last many months. If you had told me that Mayor Pete would be in the contest still and Kamala Harris would be out, if you said that 6 months ago, I'd say that you were insane. There's a resilience that Bernie Sanders has demonstrated 4 years ago that continues to accrue to his benefit now. That California number is powerful. He's up at 26% in California now. California votes early on March 3rd. If he finishes...
Votes even before that. I mean, the date is March 3rd.
They start the early voting. He's the only one with any serious momentum right now. And as Governor Christie has pointed out to me, the superdelegate erasure from the Democratic Party is only going to benefit Bernie Sanders in the end.
Listen.
So, wow, I am surprised. I am surprised on a Sunday morning show they even let that guy on because he makes some good points. Bernie is on the rise. He's on the rise 7 points in South Carolina, which he didn't mention. But Bernie's on the rise in California. Bernie is basically the most steady of all of these candidates. Thank you for the super chat, Seth Peterson, $20. If Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire, it's pretty much game over for these bozos. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. I'm going to explain to you just how they are going to try, and they already are trying, to sandbag Bernie. So I would hope you're right, but I don't think that's necessarily true. But thank you for the kind super chat. Coladict, BGN, $5. I don't know what BGN stands for, but thank you for the BGN. Tech tip for making the stream not choppy like this. Get an AMD R9 3900X or a Threadripper when you're making your next hardware upgrade. Thank you so much, Coladict. I would kindly say one tip for us upgrading in our production is growing our membership. We're currently at 742 paying Status Coup members, but we need to get that number up because this is how we're going to spruce up the production. I'm also not at my normal location right now, so that's why it's a little choppy. I'm not on Ethernet at the moment, but hopefully you could see, you could hear well. We are not 60 minutes, but I think we actually are offering truth and exposing the oligarchy that outlets like 60 Minutes perpetuate. So thank you for the super chat. And again, you can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. It is supporting the in the field reporting that, as far as I know, no one else is doing. So you hear right there a guest actually say, don't sleep on Bernie. He's doing really well in California. He should have mentioned South Carolina, but whatever. Take what you can get. So here is the corporate media propaganda against Bernie that is not based in fact, but you are going to hear a lot of this if Bernie were to win Iowa. And by the way, we got almost 400 people watching right now. We got 206 of you have pressed that like button. So if another 200 can press that like button, we are going to be off. We are going to be off. So try to press that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under there. So only a little bit more of this segment if you could stomach a little more. Here we go.
Serious momentum.
You know, if you're Donald Trump, you're sitting and watching this and you just can't believe your good fortune.
Again,
Can't,
your good
right?
fortune again.
You really can't believe it. I mean, the fact that Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren are the people who've had where the energy is. Joe Biden has seemed unable to perform at a level that's acceptable for him to take off with the rest of those voters that are reluctant about Warren and Sanders. And that Buttigieg just does not seem, in my view, to be able to be taken long-term seriously as a nominee for a whole bunch of reasons, including his lack of support in the minority community. I think, you know, he's looking at the very real possibility that he could be running against a Warren or a Sanders, which he would relish.
But Rich Lowry, if Bernie Sanders has persisted, and he has stayed pretty steady, even after a heart attack, so is Joe Biden at the top of the poll. He's been remarkably stable, it turns out.
His performance has never risen above fair or middling at best, and still he showed remarkable persistence. But look, this thing is wide open. Biden easily could win Iowa. Wins Iowa is probably the nominee, and it's much less dramatic than we thought. But as Nate Silver alluded to, Bernie Sanders easily could win Iowa and New Hampshire, and then you're looking at a desperate stop Bernie Sanders campaign. So I would say two things the last couple of weeks have been the big story in the Democratic race. One, the uptick of Bernie Sanders. The other is Amy Klobuchar beginning to show a little momentum in Iowa. So
Oh, God, you gotta love it. I don't know what's funnier, Rich Lowry, just general, or the fact that they're now continuing this nonsense about Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, let me explain to you what they're doing here. And then I'm going to show you some real alarming conflicts of interest that are not being disclosed showing that the DNC is still trying to rig the election against Bernie. So, Chris Christie, of course, George Stephanopoulos, I call him. Chris Christie, fact-free, he's done, clogging bridges in New Jersey. Chris Christie, and thank you for the super chat. Jody Godwin, thanks for everything, Status Coup. Thank you. And by the way, this super chat is a key way for us to get funding. Like I said, Marcus is going to be reporting in Iowa for several weeks. We're just waiting for Christmas. We want him to spend Christmas with his kiddies, and then he's hitting Iowa for us. I'm going to be in New Hampshire. I'm hoping this week. I also have plans to go to South Bend, Indiana. So, hey, we're not just telling you what we're going to do. We've talked the talk. This is where we've been in the last year and a half. We got a lot more microphones to put on that map. So please, 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 definitely, whether it's Super Chat, whether it's Status Coup membership, which is really our preferred, this is how we grow, especially at a time when YouTube is really attacking us and other outlets like us. $5 to $10 a month can support this in the field reporting. And I do have some original field reporting for you today. So, Chris Christie, fact-free, which George Stephanopoulos, $2 from It's Just Mimi, $2. Are you going to report more on voter suppression? I got a major story on voter suppression today, so stay tuned for that. And yes, so Chris Christie says, without facts, Donald Trump is licking his chops. Licking his chops. He just can't wait for Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, he put in there. Despite the fact that Bernie Sanders right now, poll after poll, is beating the living beep out of Donald Trump. He's beating Donald Trump by 10 to 12 points head to head. He is beating Donald Trump in Michigan in many polls. He is beating Donald Trump in Wisconsin in some polls. He is beating Donald Trump in Pennsylvania in some polls. But Chris Christie, and this is what you're going to see, is allowed to just lie. No pushback on the fact that he's just making shit up. Totally making shit up. Bernie Sanders has been crushing Donald Trump head to head for 4 years. Donald Trump isn't licking his chops to go against Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump is praying he could go against either Joe Biden, who is Hillary Clinton with different body parts, or Pete Buttigieg. That's who Donald Trump wants to run against because it's the same exact candidate he just beat. Honestly, say what you want about Hillary Clinton, I'm no fan. Joe Biden is a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton. You think the cognitive mess you see during these debates, during these speeches, you think it's going to get better in a year if he's the nominee? If he's on the Democratic debate stage against Bernie Sanders, you think it's going to get better? No. No. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So, Chris Christie's allowed to lie, but then you have Rich Lowry. I mean, this should be scandalous that they're saying this, but it's not, because they're openly admitting that they are trying to crush Bernie Sanders. You have Rich Lowry saying, well, if Bernie wins Iowa, that's it. There's going to be an onslaught against him. You have Nate Silver, who literally has called you all conspiracy theorists for daring to say that the primary was rigged in 2016. All of these people on ABC, all of these people in the New York Times, they just call you kooky conspiracy theories. Oh, those progressives with their little conspiracy theories. Nate Silver just said the Democratic Party would coalesce to stop Bernie Sanders if he wins Iowa. Rich Lowry just said it. I don't see George Stephanopoulos challenging them on that. Do you? Thank you, The Progressive Way. $3 with a cool sticker. Thank you, Rob R. $1.99. Turn the volume up on the video clip. It's too low. Okay. Sorry about that. Princess Queen, $2. It was previously said Trump is scared of Sanders. Correct. Carol Edwards, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. I reached out to you a couple weeks ago. Bernie rally in Rancho Mirage, California. RM amphitheater tomorrow. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, Carol, and thank you for the really generous $50. We really appreciate that. I hope you're doing well. Keep the super chats coming. This really makes a big difference. Extropian, $10. Thanks for all the hard work. Coup team, thank you. Lawrence Johnson, $10 in the super chat. Thank you for that sticker. Keep it coming. So what's amazing to me about this, they're openly saying if Bernie wins Iowa, they are going to bring an onslaught on Bernie Sanders. An onslaught. They're not going to let the democratic process play out. They're not going to stay out of it. They're going to interfere. Honey, what is it the Democratic Party is so upset about? Foreign interference, right? From who? Russia? So the Democratic Party, who our holy democracy is under attack. Our holy democracy is under attack. They are very, very ready to interfere if it's Bernie Sanders. So here's what I don't understand. Oh, I missed the super chat. Mo Mooney, California, $5. Biden will always poll well, so when the rigging during the primary occurs, it'll seem plausible. Don't expect any exit polls this time either. Thank you, Mo Money, but I'm about to show you the rigging has begun. So I do want to give, thank you for the super chat. I do want to give journalist Michael Sonato and activist Jeff Campbell credit, because they actually messaged me about this. I think they're doing a wider story on this, but this came to my attention from them, and I will be doing more investigating of this. I didn't have a lot of time before this live stream, but I got the basics. So if you don't know, the CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, they are littered with former national security analysts. They are littered with defense contractors. They are littered with security analysts that just so happen to work in the private intel industry. They are littered with that on the air constantly. But they are also littered, without disclosing it, by the way, they are also littered with Democratic Party operatives that are getting paid by the Democratic National Committee while simultaneously going on television and writing in the Washington Post, writing in the New York Times, writing in thehill.com. They are littered with people propping up Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg and aggressively attacking Bernie Sanders with zero disclosure that these people are on the payroll of the DNC. It is scandalous, but we're not surprised because we've been dealing with this kind of rigging now for 4 or 5 years. Thank you for the super chat. Hey Joe, $6. Imagine if Bernie wins first 4 primaries. I mean, Jesus. Imagine all the people. That would be amazing. Jillian Bolin, $2. Thank you, Status Coup. Thank you. Keep it coming. We're almost at 500 viewers. We have 300 of you have pressed that like button. So we need 200 more of you. Press that thumbs up button right under the video. It's helping us to get the audience numbers up. So I want to show you something. Just an example here, okay? So let's take a look at this clip from MSNBC.
Adrian, you first.
Yeah, look, Alex, I'm really glad that she made this point because it did take Bernie Sanders a long time to endorse Hillary Clinton. It took him a long time to get out of the race, and it also took him a long time to actually go out and campaign for us. And I think the point that she's making is, you know, no matter what happens in 2020, I do hope that Bernie Sanders, if he's not the nominee, will endorse whomever the nominee is. I'm glad she made that point.
Philippe?
Well, don't forget that she's been on both sides of this. Hillary was the nominee in 2016, and the only people in hindsight who think that Bernie did a lot for her or enough for her is Bernie and his supporters. But she also lost in 2008 to Barack Obama in a far more difficult race that went wire to wire. And Barack Obama and his supporters went from being, you know, dubious about her and maybe not even positive about her. There's no one who would say that she didn't do enough. She did more events for Barack Obama in 2008 than Sarah Palin did for John McCain.
You know, point well taken.
So, first of all, that guy who has basically been Hillary Clinton's bag man for her entire campaign, that man literally just said that Hillary Clinton did more campaigning for Barack Obama. Actually, the facts are Bernie Sanders did more campaigning for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton did for Barack Obama. But don't let facts get in the way. So, what's interesting to me is this woman, Adrienne Elrod, who's on there talking about Bernie Sanders didn't do enough for Hillary Clinton, yada, yada, yada. It's not mentioned that Adrienne Elrod has gotten $45,000 in consultancy fees with the Democratic from the DNC in this election cycle. I don't know. I kind of think that if MSNBC is going to have on a consultant for the Democratic National Committee, maybe they should mention that the DNC is paying Adrienne Elrod consultant fees, kind of as a conflict of interest. Isn't the DNC supposed to be neutral? Does that not extend to DNC consultants? Because Adrienne Elrod is on Twitter, she's on MSNBC, basically smearing Bernie Sanders, even though Bernie did more events for Hillary Clinton than Hillary did for Barack Obama. But it gets better. Karen Finney. This is earlier this year. Based on what he just said in the Oval Office, Bernie Sanders enters the 2020 race today with real Donald Trump defending him. Interesting. And I'm sure, when I have more time, I'm going to go through her Twitter. I hope she's not watching so she doesn't delete all her stuff. But here you have it. She's basically trying to link Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. Just so happens that was in February. Yeah, just so happens she got $10,000 from the DNC right before that. No big deal, right? Karen Finney, $10,000, beginning of the year from the DNC. Soon after that, based on what he just said in the Oval Office, Bernie Sanders enters the race today with real Donald Trump defending him. I don't know, folks. Am I making a big to-do about nothing here? Is it kind of significant? Is it kind of significant that you have basically Democratic Party operatives, quote-unquote consultants for the Democratic National Committee? And by the way, my former colleague at the Young Turks, Nomiki, reported on basically the utter disgusting bloat of the DNC and the fact that they spend most of their money on consultants to give them ridiculous advice. They spend most of their money. By the way, I do read the super chat. You don't have to tell me. I know that there's competitors live right now. I get it. If people want to watch those competitors, so be it. Love Jimmy Dore, though. Sucks. I've been saying for a long time, I wish to fight this YouTube suppression, progressives would come together. I would die and go to heaven if the Jimmy Dores of the world, the Kyle Kalinskis of the world, the Mike from the Humanist Report, Jamal Thomas, Rational National, who else am I forgetting? Abby Martin, the Gray Zone. I would love for us all to have our own network. I know there's an engineer out there. I know there's a tech person out there. I would love us to have our own alternative platform where we can go on. We have our own time slots, so we're not on top of each other. You could watch all of your favorite personalities at the time slots that they're in. Obviously, each outlet could have bonus content for members and all that. I'm pretty sure that progressives and just people looking for true independent facts and independent media would pay $10 a month for that, a la carte, to get everybody. I mean, I've been saying that for a while. I would love that. And I think, unfortunately, whatever, some people don't want to do that. They've been working for years and don't want to play with others, whatever. But I'm just saying, I think that would be great. But love Jimmy. I get it. He's live. Cool. So what's amazing to me is here you have the Democratic Party is essentially, instead of trying to rig the primary, in the background, instead of them trying to rig the primary by basically having DNC people email networks planting stories about Bernie Sanders being an atheist, about Bernie Sanders, being anti-Semitic. This is what they did in 2016. We know about that. oh, cyber would pay $20 for that. But what's amazing to me is now they're actually doing it out in the open. They're just expecting nobody's going to look. So, I mean, that's not the only one. Just look at this. You have Maria Cardona, who is a Democratic Party operative. She is a lobbyist. She works for Dewey Squared. She writes on October 9th, 2019, it's time for Joe Biden to take the fight to Donald Trump. Former Vice President Joe Biden has been under attack by President Trump, who continues to spew unfounded, debunked conspiracy theories that Biden accepted inappropriately when he led a coalition of world leaders to push Ukraine to fire a prosecutor who is not rooting out corruption in the fledgling democracy. Trump raises the specter of corruption surrounding Biden's son, Hunter Biden, who took a high-paying position on the board of Burisma Holdings, an energy company in Ukraine. Trump's attacks against Biden and his son will only get worse, more pointed and more personal, because this is Trump's playbook at its worst. I don't need to read the rest. By the way, this is the same Maria Cardona that in 2016, WikiLeaks, those terrible, terrible Russians, WikiLeaks exposed that Maria Cardona, who's a consultant for the DNC, was basically working with the DNC. You remember this? Was basically working with the DNC and crafting with the DNC, with Hillary Clinton's campaign reviewing it, an op-ed for CNN attacking Bernie Sanders for his campaign and the awfulness at the Nevada convention. You remember those non-existent chairs that were thrown? Right here. I'll put it in the super chat if you don't remember. Right here. Maria Cardona. She was working with the DNC to write hit jobs on Bernie Sanders for CNN. No disclosure at all on the Nevada caucus. And that little, them working together, Cardona, the DNC, Hillary Clinton's campaign. Oh, Bernie must take the high road. Oh, God. It's the day after another set of primaries, and Hillary Clinton has won the state of Kentucky, while Bernie Sanders has won the state of Oregon. They both are to be commended. But what happened at the Nevada State Party Convention this past weekend, when party leaders and representatives of both campaigns gathered to allocate delegates, was a loss for Democrats everywhere. Then she gets into this nonsense about Bernie's campaign being angry and heckling Barbara Boxer and throwing chairs and all this nonsense. Well, this person, who again is on TV as a CNN analyst, is writing pieces for thehill.com. This time, just happens to be getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 90,000 something dollars in consultancy fees from the DNC this year. This year. I just named you 3 Democratic Party operatives that are getting major money from the Democratic National Committee to then go on TV or go on Twitter and either bash Bernie Sanders or prop up Joe Biden. And we wonder, and they say, the party's not rigged. Bernie supporters better fall in line. Can you imagine for a second if, I don't know, who's like a big Bernie Sanders supporter? Jordan, maybe you should touch base with all of the YouTubers you mentioned and make this progressive network happen. Bondupoulos, I've mentioned this to several YouTube hosts, including many of the ones I mentioned. And unfortunately, nobody has expressed interest. And I'm not knocking anyone. It's just, I get it. If you're, I don't know, I'm not saying him in particular, but let's say you're Kyle Kalinske and you've been doing this for, I don't know when he started, but I think at least 10 years ago, and you've gotten up to 700,000 or whatever he has subscribers. He's, this is a hard job. This is not a 5-day-a-week job. Most of us work 6-7 days a week. you want to reap those rewards. You know, you set out as an individual, and why would you then join all these other people? So I totally get it. I personally think, by the way, that's not what he said to me. I'm just saying if I was him, maybe that's how I would be thinking. But at the same time, I think there's a way of all of us coming together on one network where, you know, you charge, let's say, call it the progressive Netflix, call it whatever you want, $10 a month or $15 a month. It could be determined where it's a la carte. You get all of us. We all have time slots. We all do things together also. There's crossover. But that doesn't mean you can't have your individual identity. You can't have your individualized content where people support you as members. We would still have Status Coup membership for bonus content, things like that. But I think it's a much, much better way for us to avoid the suppression that we're all dealing with. I mean, I'm going to talk about the YouTube. YouTube just finally admitted they've been suppressing channels like this. Kyle, Jimmy, Humanist Report, Rational National, Jamal Thomas, Abby Martin, Gray Zone, all of us for 2 years now. They just finally admitted it. So I think it's a better solution because it's only going to get worse on YouTube, whether it's channels like Kyle that have much larger audiences than Status Coup, or channels like Status Coup that we launched after this suppression started. So we've really been up against it, possibly more than anyone else, because at least those channels had a chance to grow before their content was hidden in a cave. You know what I mean? We launched right after our content was hidden in a cave. So anyway, I digress. So here's the bottom line. This, if you start your own network outside of YouTube, you will never attract new people. This is where the audience is, even with their censorship. Coladict, I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree. The same could have been said if you launch media outlets or shows outside of CNN, outside of MSNBC, outside of the traditional media. Nobody will see you because everybody's watching on there. It's just not true. Trust me. People on YouTube, viewers on YouTube that watch independent media would flock if enough, call it star power, leaves YouTube. 120%. If enough of the hosts that they love were elsewhere, you watch people leave. People aren't married to YouTube. People want to watch the hosts, commentators, journalists they love. It's the same thing with healthcare. People aren't married to private healthcare. They're married to private insurance. They need healthcare. Well, I think a lot of people need information and true information, especially people that are politically astute, politically curious. So if a bunch of us named a network and went there, yeah, I mean, not everybody would go there day one, but I don't think it would be as big of a issue as you think. So why I'm bringing all this up is because I think a lot of progressives are not because they're naive, but are under this illusion that if Bernie wins Iowa, if Bernie wins Iowa, he's definitely going to win New Hampshire. And if Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire, it's over. Thank you, Pop Reality, $2. I definitely follow you and Kyle and Jamal. That's what I'm saying. So Kyle's subscribers doubled in 2016 because of election cover and much slower growth since then. Well, I could tell you, I mean, I can't speak to Kyle in specific, but a lot of the slower growth is because YouTube in 2017 changed its algorithm to bury channels like Kyle, to bury channels like Jimmy, to bury channels like Humanist Report. I mean, they could all tell you that's what happened. For me, for example, when I was still at the Young Turks, after the 2016 campaign, I was still growing in 2017 very, very quickly. It was when they changed the algorithm that it started going down the street. So, just saying. Keenan Hall, $4.99. Thank you. If Bernie gets the majority vote, but not the 51% he needs, then the superdelegates vote. Will the superdelegates screw him over and back Biden? Yes, they will. 100%. 100%. That's why Bernie needs to get the delegate count. Needs to get. the delegate count, 100%. So why I'm bringing all this up? If Bernie wins Iowa, I am telling you now, even if the impeachment trial was in the Senate, they will switch off of that, and it will be wall to wall, undisclosed. They're not going to disclose it. DNC consultants on Morning Joe, on Wolf Blitzer, on Chris Cuomo, on Rachel Maddow. It will be for an entire week and a half, whatever that gap is, from Iowa to New Hampshire. It will be wall to wall. DNC consultants screaming bloody murder. That, before the Iowa caucus, we love the people of Iowa. They are great. They're so smart. They know how to pick a winner. They will literally bring out everything under the kitchen sink against Bernie Sanders. They will bring out stuff that we don't even know about that they have compiled. Wait a minute, Bernie and Jane honeymooned in Russia? Why did they honeymoon in Russia? Who did they speak with? What did they eat there? Where did they stay? It is 100% going to be an onslaught. And you are going to have these same consultants leading the charge. And the people of New Hampshire, the people of South Carolina, the people of Nevada, and the people of California are going to be on the receiving end of this information war. Jordan, I know you have your issues with TYT, but isn't the TYT network what you're referring to? It's already there and set up for you and all the other progressives. Perhaps have a talk with Jank. No, that's not what I'm referring to. I was saying when I was at the Young Turks, before I left, that I think they really steered away from their core format. I think they really, really heavily shifted to 24/7 Trump, kind of becoming an edgier version of MSNBC, a lot of the same stories and content. So I'm not talking about the TYT network. I'm not saying that because they fired me or bitterness. When I was there, if you remember, I was publicly saying, it's too much. The Trump and the Russia and all this, they're not doing what they used to, which was different kinds of stories. So to me, you look at Jimmy Dore, in a lot of cases, he gets more views than TYT videos do. So I don't really think, I'm not saying TYT isn't a major, major force. Don't get me wrong. They still have a huge, huge audience and corner the market. But I don't think TYT network is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bringing together a lot of different voices and also different kinds of voices. You have the Jimmy Dores of the world, who's a stand-up comedian. You have Kyle, who is a commentator. You have Jamal Thomas, who obviously brings a different perspective, covers a lot of foreign stuff. You have me, who's more of an in-the-field journalist. So I think the individuals I'm talking about provide a much bigger range than TYT does, to be honest with you. So, and for those of you you don't have to agree with my view. What I said the other day, I stand by. I personally, at a time when Bernie Sanders is leading in some polls in Iowa, when Bernie Sanders is gaining ground in South Carolina, I don't think Bernie Sanders needs the distraction and needs to give the corporate media ammunition against him for Cenk Uygur. I'm not saying that because of any feelings I have against Cenk. I'm really not. But the bottom line is, I think what a lot of you are missing in this, it's not just comments he made 20 years ago. He made comments that have been brought up in 2017. He made comments that have been brought up in 2016, 2013. And the same people that are saying they're smears, I got news for you. If a Republican candidate was running and these comments came up from a Republican candidate, the same people saying they're smears against Cenk would be screaming bloody murder against the Republican candidate. So there needs to be intellectual consistency here. I personally don't give a damn. I don't care particularly about the Cenk part of this because, again, I'm being honest, it's not because of bitterness against Cenk. It really isn't. I think TYT although it's not what I gravitated toward. I don't think it's what the channel that I was attracted to in the first place to join. It's not that anymore. I still think it plays a part. I mean, I still think it's useful in some regards. But to me, this is about Bernie. It's not about Cenk. Bernie Sanders, let me tell you something. If he did not retract the endorsement, and if he stayed pure, which a lot of you would want, in the week of the Democratic debate, guess what Bernie Sanders is going to be being asked about, first, second, and third, by reporters? If he did not retract the statement, instead of the focus being on Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are rallying in Nevada, are rallying in Los Angeles to 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. The events haven't happened yet, but I assume they're going to be big. The coverage is going to be about Bernie Sanders is standing by an endorsement of a California man who said A, B, and C, not just 20 years ago, within the last 5 years. So to me, pick your poison. What's more important to you? Bernie Sanders being loyal to Cenk? By the way, I would say this if it was about Kyle Kulinski, if he decided to run for office, if it was about Jimmy Dore, if he decided to run. I mean, it's not about Cenk. Cenk decided to run. He's been on the internet for almost 20 years. The comments he made are the comments he made. He's a big boy. He can defend it. So, I mean, these people, like, again, coming after me and saying this is nonsense and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. All I know is Bernie Sanders' campaign, there's a difference between sacrificing your integrity. There's a difference between sacrificing your policies and getting rid of a totally unnecessary distraction. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree. Personally, being bitter and this, people saying I'm smearing, I'm bitter. I didn't read the comments he made. I didn't relitigate the comments he made. To me, I don't really care what he said in the past. Doesn't affect me. And I've probably made some dumb comments in my past. Everybody has made dumb comments in our past. So to me, it's about Bernie, not him. Pop Reality, I call BS, bro. You just said they're going to smear him if he wins the first two primaries, so it's regardless. Let's be intellectually consistent. Right, if he wins the primaries. Yes. What I'm talking about is, first he's got to win the primaries, Pop Reality. Do you really, I'm being genuine, do you really want Bernie Sanders at press conferences, in television interviews, at events? Do you want the first, second, third, fourth, fifth thing to be him being asked about Cenk Uygur? And by the way, if he stands by that, you don't think all of these people are going to be going back through Young Turks segments and Young Turks videos and asking people that have that don't like Cenk, because there are people that don't like Cenk. I know several of them, for dirt on Cenk to then attach to Bernie Sanders? Hey, if you want to be pure, if you want to, out of loyalty to Cenk and purity, so be it. But to me, Bernie winning the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary is much more important. So if you think I'm wrong, I respect that. But personally, I think Cenk has even said that. Cenk, asking for him to take back his endorsement or whatever. I think in the grand scheme of things, Bernie and Iowa and New Hampshire is more important than Cenk, and I think he would agree with that. So anyway, I want to get to something that's also not getting any coverage that I could see. We're having more. It ain't over, folks. Voters getting purged off the voter rolls. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because I saw this in New York, and now it seems to be happening in California. A, quote, computer glitch wiped out thousands of voters' party preference in the Bay Area. Interesting. They move up the California primary to be a Super Tuesday state. Last time, the California primary was one of the last states. And all of a sudden, in a state that literally, I believe, has the GDP, is the fifth largest economy in the world, there is a massive computer glitch that has purged 200,000 voters. If you're registered to vote in Contra Costa County, make sure to check your voter registration. In a press release sent out by the County Elections Division, voters were cautioned that during the 2018 rollout of the automatic voter registration system, some voters' party preference was overwritten. As such, individuals who registered with a party may have been swapped to no party preference. As of April 2018, any California resident, unless they opt out, is automatically registered to vote when they register a car or get a license for the Department of Motor Vehicles. Being listed as no party preference means would-be Democratic voters could have issues voting in the upcoming Democratic primary scheduled for March 3rd, 2020. Although no party preference voters are allowed to vote in the Democratic primaries, a vote by mail ballot must be specifically requested from the voters' county elections office. What a nightmare. The Republican Party does not allow no party preference voters to vote in the presidential primaries. Quote, we're hopeful that voters take the opportunity to look at their registration status now rather than after ballots are mailed on election day. NBC area reports the issue could have affected tens of thousands of registered voters. Pew reported in October that the DMV found over 100,000 registration errors from the automatic system, some of which were this party overriding issue. The claim is disputed by the California Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, who, by the way, interfered in the 2016 election to prop up Hillary Clinton, who issued a press release on Friday. Quote, despite recent claims, there is no widespread glitch with the California motor voter program changing voters' party affiliation. It is important to note that every registration at the DMV requires the voter to select their political party preference, review their selection, and attest to its accuracy. Since the launch of the motor voter program in April 2018, the Secretary of State's office has worked with the DMV to continuously improve the registration experience, blah, 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 blah. According to Padilla, quote, in nearly every case, there is a reasonable explanation for any change of a voter's registration record. You could check your voter registration status and political party preference on the California Secretary of State's website. Let me give that to you. So, first of all, I don't believe a damn word Alex Padilla says. In 2016, if you live in California, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. He was interfering. They were sending out incorrect mailers to voters to confuse them. They purged people off the rolls then. And apparently now they could call it a computer glitch. If you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay. It wasn't 200,000 voters, by the way. It seems tens of thousands of voters, but according to the DMV, 100,000. This could swing an election. Finding Neo, $1.99. What happened to your Flint doc? I never saw it. That's a great question. Well, I can't get into full details, but there might be something coming down the pike now. There might be something coming down the pike very soon that then gets that Flint documentary picked up. That's all I could say about that. That's all I could say about that. But the Flint doc we are very actively working on getting that picked up, and I think we're going to be able to get it picked up very, very shortly. So stay tuned. You're wrong, Jordan. What you're saying right now is a lot different than what you said last time. You stuck to facts. That is a better position, and one I can respectfully disagree with. I don't know what you're saying I'm wrong about. You just said I'm wrong, but I don't know what you're saying I'm wrong about. So anyway, so what's incredible to me, these same states that had problems last time are now suddenly tens of thousands of people are getting purged off the rolls in San Francisco area and the Bay Area. San Francisco in particular, a lot of progressive voters there. San Francisco, one of the last vestiges of the 1960s. So you tell me, are we supposed to think that we're not going to hear news of another computer glitch in New York? When we have these computer glitches, aren't the people that have been disenfranchised by these computer glitches, shouldn't they be immediately reinstated to their party preference? Shouldn't these people be contacted immediately so that they could be re-registered that same day with a visual computer email or some type of confirmation that they've been re-registered to the party that they were registered at? Or we have to now leave it after they have been tossed. We have to then say, oh, well, they have to get a vote by mail and all this stuff that most people won't even know that they need to do. It is absolutely ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it is literally the same playbook from 2016. How many times are we going to hear that there was some type of computer glitch before people wise up? And even if you want to say there's a computer glitch, okay, well, we're hysterical about the threat from Russia and cyber warfare, but when our own voters are being purged by our own government, when our own voters are being purged by people like Alex Padilla, a Hillary Clinton supporter, who I assume supports Joe Biden now, we're supposed to just say, oh, well, hopefully they get vote by mail ballots. This is the playbook, folks. And by the way, now it's happening in Wisconsin too. It's Democrats doing it. It's Republicans doing it. Judge orders 234,000 voters purged from the Wisconsin voter rolls. A Wisconsin judge on Friday ordered the state to remove hundreds of thousands of people from Wisconsin's voter rolls because they may have moved. The case is being closely watched because of the state's critical role in next year's presidential election. Ozaukee County Judge Paul Malloy also denied the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin's position to intervene. Lawyers for the League and for the Wisconsin Elections Commission indicated they will appeal and asked Malloy to stay his ruling pending those appeals, but he declined. At issue is a letter the State Elections Commission sent in October to about 234,000 voters who it believes may have moved. Oh, they believe they may have moved. The letter asked that voters to update their voter registration if they had moved or alert election officials if they were still at their same address. The commission planned to remove the letter's recipients from the voter rolls in 2021 if it hadn't heard from them. But Malloy's decision would kick them off the rolls much sooner, as well before the 2020 presidential election. Before Friday's hearing, Democratic State Attorney General Josh Cowell said in an interview that quickly removing viewers from the rolls would cause, quote, clear harm to Wisconsin voters. That's because some people who haven't moved would likely lose their ability to vote, at least for the time being. Quote, anytime people have to go through extra steps to vote, and certainly re-registering is a significant additional step, the result is that fewer people end up voting. Fewer people will be registered. A number of people will have to re-register. 3 voters sued the commission last month with the help of the conservative Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. They argued election officials were required to remove voters from the rolls 30 days after sending the letters if they hadn't heard from them. 234,000 voters purged from Wisconsin, a key state, on the assumption that they've moved. Yeah. The worry is Russia. The threat is Russia. 2 critical states. You got quote-unquote computer glitches, and you have judges, I haven't looked, but I'd be interested to see if that's a Republican judge. They're just removing people who didn't respond to mail. I got news for you. I think Donald Trump won Wisconsin by 30,000 votes. I think it was 30,000 votes. Somebody check me on that, but I think it was 30,000 votes. Well, 234,000 could make a huge difference. None of this is being discussed anywhere. CNN, MSNBC. And by the way, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, if you want to say computer glitches, whatever, fine. Well, should bureaucratic incompetence become a hassle to the voters? We are the richest country in the world. Everybody loves Jeff Bezos. All these media people, patron saint Jeff Bezos. We have the best technology in the world. Shouldn't this be fixed? That, immediately? You're going to then pass it off that these people need to send in a vote by mail ballot, which I got news for you. You know how many times they told voters in New York who were purged, oh yeah, just do a affidavit ballot, it will count. And then they threw out the affidavit ballots. I'm not saying lose hope. I'm not saying don't go out and vote. But this is part of the day-to-day cheating that goes on. And because the media doesn't cover, they continue to allow it. And by the way, people are mentioning it. Check out Greg Palast's reporting on the voter suppression. Check out Greg Palast's reporting on voter suppression, which, shocker, almost always purges more black people in poor communities. You have interstate cross-check, which is a major scandal that got no attention. By the way, it's not only states with Republican leadership where this stuff is going on. It's not just Republicans. So I'll stay on this. If there's voter issues in your neck of the woods, definitely send us a tip on it. info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. It makes a big difference. And yeah, we'll definitely stay on this. So before I move on to the next topic, I want to show you some of the reporting I did yesterday. Living in New York, there's obviously a lot of progressives here, a lot of social justice and protest types of things here. So there was a social justice market, which I was kind of curious about. And when we got there, I was like, the first thing I thought was like, wow, viewers of Status Coup would love this place, would absolutely love this place. There was artwork, there was oils and herbs, there was stickers, there were T-shirts, but there was a lot of social justice, progressive movement kind of energy and things for sale there. So I interviewed a couple of the people selling things there. I think it was pretty interesting for the most part. And even though you guys aren't from there, hopefully from wherever you live, this will kind of bring you into what it was like. Remember, the reporting, we got 500 people watching. I know not all of you are members yet. Sign up to become a member today. You can become a Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month. It is not funding me bloviating from my apartment. This is to fund our in-the-field reporting. Like I said, if you came to this late, Marcus is going to Iowa for several weeks. Right after Christmas, we're sending him to Iowa to cover the Iowa caucus, Bernie's campaign, Biden, Buttigieg, all of them. I'm hoping to go to New Hampshire this week. I'm also hoping to go to South Bend. We are not funded by corporations. We don't have any fat cats funding us. You are funding us. So we're trying to get that paid number up. It makes a big difference. It's how we stay independent. With the YouTube shenanigans, and that's my next story after this, with what YouTube is doing to us, honestly, I'm just being totally honest, this is about survival at this point. We will not survive for the long term without paid membership, subscriptions, small dollar, $5 a month, $10 a month. Without growing this pie, we will not have the money to do what we do, and that's the in-the-field reporting. We are doing it the hard way. We could have sold out 10 times over. I did have offers from Democratic Party donors to fund this. We said no. So hopefully sign up, statuscoup.com/join, and here is some of our reporting from the social justice market yesterday. So I am at a social justice market here in Brooklyn, and there's so much cool stuff here that you guys would die for. And one booth I'm at here is a 3D printing booth that Bernie supporters that basically are just designing Bernie stuff, campaign stuff, 2020 stuff. It's really, really cool. Christmas ornaments or Hanukkah tree, whatever the hell you have. Here with Sandra. So tell me how this started. I know you support Bernie and...
Yes. This is post-election, post-November 2016 election art therapy. It started with a single pin, which is our reproductive rights pin. In preparation for the Women's March, my husband had just acquired a 3D printer, and he's an artist by trade. So I asked him to make me a protest pin, and it got some attention while we were at the protest. You know, people thought it was powerful. And then we just started brainstorming, and then we started donating proceeds to Planned Parenthood, to ACLU, Trevor Project, and then we are supporting Bernie this year, so it helps with our monthly contribution to Bernie to continue to make all this, which is basically just art therapy. It honestly is a post-election renaissance. I don't know how you would describe it.
And you kind of need the therapy with all the oligarchy going after him hard this time.
So much. I mean, some days my husband will just make something because he's feeling extra angry watching the news. I mean, we have like a T-shirt that says Trump is a piece of shit, and you know, and a while back he made this Trump Russia pin, which was just basically like just a thought he had. A year later, they're wearing it on MSNBC. You know, so it's just.
I'm sure you could sell at least 2,000 to Rachel Maddow. You know, she loves her Russia game.
Yeah, maybe I need to tweet that at her, you know.
Yeah.
But honestly, it just helps us do something productive. It's a creative opportunity, and then it helps us donate to grassroots organizations, both locally on Long Island, nationally. I mean, wherever we need to go to support progressives, basically.
And when you look at kind of, there's like 25 candidates, all this, people are kind of like, I think feeling, you said anxious, because there's little glimpse where Bernie's breaking through, but then you see like people like Pete in some of these polls. So would you kind of, do you know of other people doing these kind of like therapeutic things?
I'm trying to, well, there's normally a group here, they're not here today. They started making T-shirts after the election called Saving Democracy, and they were just doing like LGBT themed T-shirts. So I do know that, at least of that group, I don't know, what was the question about Pete? What is it?
Yeah, like people doing therapeutic things in all this political angst right now.
Yeah, I think we get a lot of support from people. We like to put ourselves out there. We're Long Island based, and we tend to encounter some conservative people, but then
like my father. I'm from Massapequa.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We put our stuff in a pop-up in Massapequa. I mean, they were selling Trump prayer candles in that store. I mean, no, it's really bad. But the best feeling is when people walk into our booth and they're like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and they just want to give us the money just to keep us going, and they support it. So we fill a void for people. I do believe that, both in various age groups. You know.
Where can people find it online?
wokeandbespoke.com. Okay, woke because. All right, we incorporated a slang term because it's about waking up. It's about waking the bleep up. I don't know if you're regulated. Waking the fuck up, America. Okay, just really wake the fuck up. And then bespoke, because we're basically a made-to-order business and we do a lot of customization, and it rhymed with woke. I do have to tell you, Politiso, check this one out. They've got a whole bunch of stuff going on about washing out Washington. So.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, guys. Field start.
Where's the soap?
Oh.
We had them make this for us. They make Toilet soap. We said we want a soap. We want to call it "Wake the Fuck Up America" and put like an invigorating smell in it. So this is one of the partnerships we did. But if you read the whole thing, it's pretty fascinating.
Love it. This kind of caught my eye. A little gentrification with the middle finger. Gentrification is warfare, which I agree. So I'm here with BB, and you used to live in Harlem. But basically, in the name of economic development, you got priced out.
So I was born and raised in Harlem, and I was kicked out because of what's happening with, the high-rises and the rezoning of the neighborhood. In other words, gentrification. So I was priced out to the Bronx.
And I believe Michael Bloomberg was mayor for quite a lot of this, who's now running for president.
De Blasio also has a hand in it because he says he's for affordable housing, but that's not true. A lot of real estate developers are in his pocket. So it's just a lot with the politicians, the Department of City Planning, and big real estate companies that basically buy land in marginalized communities, usually black and brown communities, for cheap. They get tax incentives for years, and the people from the neighborhood get priced out.
And it's interesting to me because they make it seem like, they were talking about Amazon coming to Queens and how wonderful this was, but these media figures never really consider people like you or people that are native have nowhere to go, basically.
Well, the thing is, when real estate companies, let's say, buy a land in marginalized communities, what happens is that they can have a desert land. So what they do is they try to attract big businesses like Amazon or coffee shops or new gyms in order to attract people to the neighborhood that once was considered bad and they feared or had bad names. So they try to rebrand it. Like, I grew up in Spanish Harlem, they're trying to rebrand it to Spaha. When you see city bikes and coffee shops, you know that things are going to change.
Yeah. Or Whole Foods.
Oh, that too.
When you hear about like the lowest unemployment in 50 years and the booming economy, all you got to do is like walk in a little further into these neighborhoods, and it's essentially just ethnically pushing people further out.
Sure. I love when they say, "Oh, all these new businesses are going to bring jobs," but all of these jobs are not going to pay the wage for the native community to afford the new rents. Right. So it doesn't make sense. And what happens is, since they have to now, because they're getting priced out, they have to move further away, which is taking time away from the traveling time, is taking time away from their families. They're probably spending more to travel, so it just doesn't add up.
And are you hearing anything from any of the candidates as far as speeches I've heard, I've only heard Bernie even mention the word gentrification.
Yeah, if I'm leaning towards anybody, it's going to be Bernie, but I really don't care or follow the presidential race because it's just, I think they just say what they got to say to get elected, and then they forget what's really important.
I think a lot of people who have been pushed out, A, don't have time to pay attention, but B, feel like you. It's like, I've heard this record before.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I look to grassroots communities, because they actually are out there spreading the word, starting tenant associations, feeding the people, and doing things that the elected officials say they're going to do, but never do. So they're not my stars and hopes towards fixing the problem.
And do you guys sell online?
Yes.
Where can people find?
At pdts.co.
PDTs?
Yeah, PIRITEES.co.
Cool. I'm getting this one. Do you have a mail size? Yeah. Gammy makes all of this. I'm really into the fight fascism. Fuck Columbus. So tell me about kind of what first got you kind of involved in social justice and making this great artwork.
Sure. So one of my good friends and partner brought me around a group called Party for Socialism and Liberation. Went to a few of their events, got politicized through them, and noticed that there's not as much art that talks about the different issues that our class is facing, and I wanted to create art that reflected the politics I was learning about. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to hit on as many different topics and different issues, predominantly highlighting women of color in the struggle and their role in liberation. And yeah, that's what I have here.
It's interesting because, like, I was just in London, and most of the art is on wealthy white people throughout history, but you don't see as much like radical political stuff. So I think it's enlightening.
Yeah, I've tried to make my characters like POC, marginalized, indigenous, women of color, femme folks, trans folks, as many different bodies and people I can represent in my art. I feel like it could speak to more people that way. Yeah.
And the fascism one's interesting because to me, the resistance kind of makes it seem like fascism is a new thing in America, but it's long before Trump. I mean, you have corporations basically working with the government, like Standing Rock, for example. What kind of response have you gotten to like these kind of themes?
The most response I've gotten has been on my online platform, and it's been people of the right who are trying to say that I'm promoting violence and that I'm promoting like this kind of like oppressive messaging. But in reality, they're the ones who are doing that stuff in the streets, that are killing folks, that are like making people unsafe in their bodies and in their communities. So I'll make art about it, and if people get upset, that means I'm doing something. Yeah.
That's how I feel about journalism too. The Fuck Columbus one kind of stood out to me because like nobody, I mean, you learn about like Columbus in school, but very like altered view of him. Same thing with Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I got inspired from an indigenous friend of mine who lives in Arizona. This is an actual photo of her that I replicated to show Afro-Indigenous people and to show that like they exist, and also to just give the message of fuck Columbus, because we don't need to celebrate genocide, we don't need to celebrate colonialism in this country, and we need to celebrate the people who are here and the people who have been here and fought for us, and that's Indigenous people. So I'm glad that in states like California they recognize Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day, and we just need to see more of that.
Have you were you inspired at all by Standing Rock for any of your art?
Yeah, a lot of this is like different characters are based off of different photos of people I've seen. I take every single one of these characters are based on real people, one way or another, just to have a little bit of them in the art I make, because everyone's included in the movement, and I want to represent them in it however I can.
Do you hear anything from the current presidential candidates that's anything other than blowing smoke up people's asses?
What do you mean?
Are there any candidates actually speaking to these issues that you feel?
Not really. I mean, the closest one is like probably Bernie, but the system is still going to be the same with or without him, but we just need to have a people's movement, and that's one of the things I'm glad he's kind of touching on and talking about. But real change is not going to come from these politicians. It's going to come through people, grassroots movements, like real people power will change things, and we just need to do more to educate. This is why you do what you do, and this is why I do what I do. Arts and education needs to come together and find a way to liberate us from this oppressive capitalist system.
And where could people find this online?
I'm mainly on Instagram. My Instagram is Gammy Kills. You'll find me, GAMMYKILLZ. Cool. Yep, I'm there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And here in front of political prisoner calendars, which is really interesting, and some things I'm learning about here. So tell me about kind of what got you involved with this, David.
Sure, yeah, my name is Daniel McGowan. Should I look at the camera?
No, you can talk.
Okay. My name is Daniel McGowan. I'm associated with this Certain Days Freedom for Political Prisoners calendar. And It's in its 19th year of production. We're a group that formed by former political prisoners Herman Bell, Robert Seth Hayes, and David Gilbert, and in 2001. And so the calendar exists as sort of an educational item about like political prisoners and the struggle against prisons. And we basically create a theme each year, solicit art on that theme, and so we end up printing 12 original pieces of art and articles each year. We sell the counters and we give away the proceeds to different social justice organizations.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you were telling me about Jeremy Hammond.
So Jeremy Hammond is a anarchist hacker from the group Anonymous that was doing a 10-year sentence for hacking a variety of different companies and agencies, including Stratfor, which is like a private spy agency, and I believe the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. So Jeremy was doing 10 years. He received a grand jury subpoena a few months ago. He was brought before the grand jury and he refused to testify. And the judge was able to freeze Jeremy's sentence. And so instead of being released on December 11, 2019, he is now essentially serving what is dead time with his clock frozen until the judge releases him from contempt of court. So it's kind of like...
So infinity.
Well, up until the term that the grand jury expires, which could be roughly like 12 more months. They can hold you for essentially the life of the grand jury, and grand juries typically meet for 18 months. I don't really have any information about when the grand jury started meeting. So he is at Alexandria Detention Center. There was a public call for a noise demo at New Year's Eve outside that detention center, so there will probably be hundreds of people there banging on drums and pots and pans and stuff, showing support for Jeremy and Chelsea Manning on New Year's Eve.
And that's the same grand jury, right?
Yeah,
of Chelsea Manning?
It appears to be. But, grand jury testimony is secret, so it's hard to speak with certainty about any of this stuff.
And with all the things that activists and progressives are protesting right now, a lot of these kind of get lost in the shuffle. I remember covering a protest a couple months ago on Assange where unfortunately there wasn't that many people.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. People have a short memory, and people like Jeremy, who went to prison 10 years ago, people probably think he's out if they ever paid attention at all. But people serve long sentences in U.S. prisons, and unfortunately, it's easy for everyone to move on to the 24-hour news cycle or whatever. But it's important to, a lot of people we do support for, like David Gilbert, has been in prison since 1981. So it's kind of outrageous that anyone would be in prison for driving a getaway car for 38 years. And there is no consistency in the U.S. system. You could have one state, someone could do 8 years for murder. The other state, they could be charged with felony murder, which just means they were there when somebody was harmed, and then that person is doing life, depending on the state that they're in. So it's totally not just.
Where can people find out more about this?
They can check us out online. We're at certaindays.org. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all with Certain Days. Just search. It's really easy to find. We post our dates, all our radical dates that exist on our calendar, all the art and information about political prisoners.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
That was the social justice market. Thank you to my camera woman, my girlfriend, Anat. Yeah, sorry about the music. There was just music at the event, so did the best I could with my with my headphones. Next time, I'll try to bring my microphone as a public service announcement. We're working with a new camera person, so he's just learning the live view, which is, as I've told you in the past, something that you funded for. You guys, your funding through GoFundMe helped us buy a very expensive piece of equipment that we needed. So he's just working through that. But once that is done, once he knows how to use it, then we'll be able to have him cover those kinds of things with me, as well as other things. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that he and I will be in New Hampshire this week covering some of the candidates. So, something that stood out to me about this event was, even people that are with us politically, the cynicism that they have just through the oppression that they deal with every day. Even someone like Bernie Sanders, they're kind of like, yeah, I guess Bernie, but even Bernie doesn't impress them. Because that's what oligarchy does. That's what imperialism does. That's what oppression does. Even if you're exposed to a message like Bernie, your root instinct is they're all full of it. Even Bernie. even someone that's consistent. That's why I didn't really push back, because like I can't blame a lot of those people I spoke with kind of just